It's gonna be a good one.
It's gonna be a good one.
Definitely a different type of process.
Cut down or freeze up.
Being a coach's son.
Jackson, of course, they keep retooling. One stolen base, a hit by pitch. Oh my goodness. Hello everyone, welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for this edition of YBMcast, powered by Game 7 Baseball, game7baseball.com. Fall ball, full swing. I think we're almost even halfway through. Maybe close. I don't know. Haven't been paying that much attention. But if you're looking for a fall ball tournament, get your t-shirts out, tape a number on the back, whatever you got to do. Go get a few extra swings. Hey, next year I may even put a fall ball team together just to go out and have some fun. And as I've said before, they'll be called the Potato Guns because we mash. I love that. I'm going to do it. It's going to happen at some point in time. Anywho, fall ball, game7baseball.com. Few weekends left. Get some swings in, folks. As everybody can see, I've got the jersey up here. Got to give a big shout out. Clayton Kershaw retiring. I want to give some love. I remember when Kershaw came in. I've been a Dodger fan since I was a little kid. I mean, this is one of the greats. And as I'm saying this, I want to welcome our guests, as always. First time on the show, met Coach Josenberger at this year's state championships. He is the head coach at Staley. Coach, thanks for joining us.
I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And as always, the guru himself, Kevin Mulder. What's going on, buddy?
Fall ball swing. So doing well.
There you go. Kershaw retiring, guys. That's big. I mean, that's a generation, right?
What a career! Yeah, my oldest son couldn't believe it. He said, "Why is he retiring? His curveball's dirty still." I was like, "He's old, guys."
Yeah, I think he's going to be. Go ahead, Coach.
He's been around for a while. He's definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer, but we're going to start having to make some decisions about the Hall of Fame with today's numbers and the lack of longevity. So I think he's probably one of the sure ballot ones that's on the pitching side. That's a no-brainer.
So that's a great point. Like, I feel like the offensive numbers were inflated a little bit, but the pitching numbers, like wins and strikeouts, innings pitched, all that stuff, career-wise, is so far off. Like, we probably won't see another 300-game winner ever, unless tides shift completely back the other direction. But, yeah, it is. You're going to have to look at things through a different lens, certainly.
I think it's interesting that you put, and I think one of the things that really solidified was when he got to 3,000 Ks. Are you going to see that unless you got, do you have the innings to put up that many Ks, even though you're a high strikeout guy? I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I haven't tracked it. Like guys like Garrett Cole and just some of the young, big, Paul Skeens. Like you got to do it for a long time. A long time. You got to keep it going for 15 plus years.
How old was Nolan Ryan when his arm just fell apart? What was he, 44 or something like that, I think?
Yeah, Nolan was special, though. He was a lot different than most these days. With the amount of torque and the training for power and all those things is a lot different than it was back in the day. And so just the injury risk is so much higher. So I agree with what Kevin said. I don't know that we'll see another 300-game winner ever.
No, because I'm looking at the Dodgers rotation just here in the last week, and it's 6 guys. You're 6 deep in the rotation, and there's no chance. I mean, how many starts are you going to get? 25, 28, maybe? depending. And if you get an extra day here and there, if you got a bump or a bruise, it's just it's gonna
At
be
6
tough.
innings, so there's 6 innings. I mean, everybody, you get 6
It's
innings.
a long outing.
Yeah, you call it quits. Shut it down.
They walk away thinking that Bob Gibson was 6 innings.
Yeah. There-
It's crazy. And then I'm watching last night. I was like, man, Shohei is just dealing 6 innings, just roasting everybody. And then the Dodgers bullpen is dead. That's why the Dodgers will not get out of the wild card round. Anywho, there you go. That's my prediction right there. But shout out to Clayton Kershaw. Watched his whole career. One of the best, and I agree. First ballot Hall of Famer. It's going to be fun. I hope they can go out on a higher note, but we'll see. Coach Josenberger, folks, if you don't know, head coach at Staley. Coach, give the folks a little background. What you've been doing, how'd you get into, just who you are.
Well, spent 20 years in education. I transitioned out in 2018. Started doing some entrepreneurial things, recruiting service for a while. Then I had the opportunity to jump in the club ball scene full-time basis. So I ran competitive edge for the last 6 years. And then the opportunity at Staley came up. So I threw my name in the hat, and I was blessed to get the opportunity to be able to get that position. I think it's one of the best jobs in the state. And I've been in baseball my whole life, played at Fort Hays, got a son that plays professional baseball. I've coached for really, really long time. As a PE teacher, you coach just about everything, but I've coached baseball for 25 plus years.
Very good, Coach. And you're right. I think so. And I know when we talked a little bit at the state championships, you were talking about that Platte County squad. A lot of those kids played at the competitive edge where you instructed a lot of those kids. Yeah,
I knew their roster. Actually, I probably knew their roster better than I knew mine. I had a bunch of those guys in my cages in the facility for several years. Great group of boys, but honestly, I probably knew those guys better. Dayton Dahl and all those kids, and Rocco and Brooks Hall and all those kids I've coached for many years, retrained to give lessons to.
Good group. Hey, Coach, what are kind of the differences from just, did you see like doing coaching from the travel ball scene, if you will, moving into the high school role? Does anything change for you? Do you approach it a little differently? Kind of, what are the differences or adjustments did you, if any, have to make with that transition?
Of course. I was actually excited to get back into the high school baseball scene because I can bat 9 guys and play to win. In the club scene, it's really about putting kids in a position to get showcased and see their abilities. If KU wants to see a kid pitch on a Friday night, regardless of the matchup, you got to make that happen. We do some of that in high school ball, but it's not as prevalent as in club ball. And the other thing is that I really enjoy, the other biggest challenge is the amount of time that you have with your players in high school. It's so condensed as to what you have in club ball. You get a lot of time to build relationships in club ball because you see those guys a lot, pretty much 9 months out of the year. And in high school, you have to be really intentional about the relationships and the development because the season goes so quickly. But other than that, baseball's baseball, trying to teach and preach fundamentals at every level. And, but those are the differences in my opinion.
Yeah. Interesting. Because you make an interesting point there because Coach Sissel does the Baseball 101 podcast. He talks about this a lot. And just here's a shameless plug for y'all. Baseball 101 this Friday. He'll have Coach Sipes from Platte County. We're on that side of the state. He'll be on the show with Darren. But they were talking about that, not being in the building as a teacher necessarily. You're coaching the team. Does that put a little more, I wouldn't say strain, but emphasis on when you do have the time, because you're not seeing those kids every day in class, correct, Coach?
Yeah, I'm not seeing them in class, but last year I was really intentional. So I have an active teaching license still, so I'd subbed in the building all first semester last year, several days a week, just to get acclimated to the school and learn the staff and meet other athletes and coaches. So I was intentional about that, and I mean I'm up to the school probably 3 or 4 times a week still. Like I'll pop in there during the day, hang out at lunch so they see my face. So I think there's a way around it. I'll just have the blessing that I don't have to be there at 7:00 every morning and stay till 3.
But you got the threat of being around, don't you, Coach?
Yeah, they see me all the time. Like yesterday I was there and they're like, "Hey, you subbing today?" No, just popping in. So yeah. I think there's ways to be able to benefit and get around that, but it ultimately goes back to just being intentional about building relationships with your athletes and the community, the school community, and
Absolutely. When we've been talking a lot about baseball in the state, and I'm this type of person. I love history and the history of things. I think it's interesting. I think you see a lot of trends, and you see why programs are successful over time, and the people that are there, the people that are setting those standards within programs. And throughout the Kansas City, the greater Kansas City suburban, I'm sure it's evolved. And I mean, it was funny. I was talking to Darren Sissel. In fact, we were talking about this, and he says, "I didn't know there was 28 teams in the KC Suburban Conference." I said, "Yeah, man, it's big." Talk to the folks about this conference as a whole, Coach. You've been around it a while, I'm sure, being in that area. What's your feel of this conference, and why do you think it's so successful?
Well, it's a grind. I feel like we've got a lot of quality coaches that have been in these positions for a long time and established a culture and a program that's been sustainable. Lee Summit West, Jay does an awesome job, and of course Blue Springs South and Blue Springs. All those guys have been around for a long time. These are coveted positions for the most part, and people stick in those positions. I mean, I'm only the second coach in Staley history, because Dave Wilson opened the school and he did 17 years. So I think the longevity of the staff, and then Grain Valley's coach has been there and established program for a really long time. So I think that's part of it. And, Kansas City has a lot of great baseball, and the things that these guys are doing at PBR with home field and Creekside, it makes it even more wanting to come to this area to be able to compete in baseball.
I am really, I live in the St. Louis area. I am very envious of the Kansas City baseball facilities. What an advantage. And I think there is something to be said with the extra opportunities for development and just convenience on, I know you've been on the travel ball side as well. Like, these kids aren't having to travel. They got lots of good competition coming into the Kansas City area. So I know that the club teams still do travel, but they don't have to travel as often, and there's always a facility available. Now, a lot, like, you got a brand new, beautiful facility. You guys have turf, but with home field, Creekside, there's rarely rainouts, right? Like, there's always a place for someone to go, even if your team doesn't have a turf facility. But I think that has been, in Urban Youth Academy has been a piece of that as well. Just there's some great facilities in the Kansas City area, and I personally think that is a piece of the equation on why Kansas City is kind of popped here.
Yeah, I agree. There's some situations where we work pretty closely with the Creekside home field guys, and if we can't get a game in somewhere that's supposed to be a dirt field, we call those guys over there quickly, and we can still get a game in. So that has allowed us to continue to not, skip a beat when it comes to getting our games in and playing. So that's awesome to have in our backyard.
It makes a huge difference. I know, because it is Missouri, and, baseball playing in the spring or, close enough to the spring through that March, April, it's just one of those things you don't know. Rain comes. Sometimes you might have a dry one. That happens very rarely, and I think it's I like the turf personally because for me, rainouts are bad when we're trying to go and live stream the game. We don't want it either. We want to be able to do it. We're going back through. I went on to Misha's website, and they go back to the year 2000 as far as championship history. And I was looking at this, and it's not that long ago that there was just the top was a 4A, Class 4A, and I think it's interesting. Class 5A didn't start until 2013. That's not that long ago, guys.
Yeah.
And then Class 6A was 2021 was the first year Class 6A started. So, I think relative history in what we're looking at now today, it's a much different climate of teams you're playing and whatnot. And I think the conferences still are set up more towards that old system, the 4A and the 3A. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. I think there's going to be some alignment here in our conference. I think after this year, I think we're losing somebody and maybe trying to replace them with somebody, but it's probably time to do a little bit of realignment. But most of that's based on enrollment, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But, we've had the last 5 6A state championship teams in our conference.
Yes, you have.
Yeah.
Yes, you have. And that's the thing. And I think it's interesting because we look at this over here in St. Louis. You have the St. Louis Suburban in a similar scenario like the KC Suburban. And to me, you look at classification is kind of maybe pushed aside to geography. Is that what but I don't know that I'm seeing that as much on that side of the state.
No, they're talking about maybe try to do it more geographically, but then the enrollment part of it kicks in. But, we were in a conference with Blue Springs and Lee Summits and all those guys, which is great competition. But, Park Hill's 10 minutes away from us. Park Hill South's 15 minutes away from us. Liberty's 10 minutes away from us. And, of course, they're on the other side of the division, in the red division. So, geographically, I think they could probably do a little bit better job of aligning that. Because Ray-Pec's almost an hour drive for us. So
that's interesting.
At the end of the day, you play who you play, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I love pointing that stat out that Coach dropped about how many conference teams out of conference have won state championship in a row, especially when talking about the public-private school thing. And I honestly think the advantage lies with the public school, which it isn't a bad thing, at least in the sport of baseball. Because it has been dominant to be, and it's right there, I believe, since 2019. That was the last private school state champion at the large school level. So it's a great run, and certainly Kansas City has carried that flag for the public schools here.
I went, when you're looking at this from the year 2000, there has been one year that there has not been a representative from the KC Suburban Conference in the Final Four in classes. One. That's 2.5 decades. That's pretty dominating. And it was in 2010. There were no teams from the KC Suburban in that. And you go back to all the way to 2000, and sometimes it's two teams. I was Oak Park was quite the team back in the day. Liberty's got Lee Summit. Lee Summit North was even showing up in the Final Four back in the day. Blue Springs, Liberty, of course, the Blue Jays, they've been pretty dominant for quite some time, haven't they, Coach?
Yeah, they really have. Bragg's done an awesome job. He always seems to get the most out of whatever talent level, or he finds a way to get it done every year. They're always tough to beat. You know what you're going to get from those guys, hard-nosed and well-coached. So, when you set a standard that's sustainable like that, they're always going to be in the mix.
So last year you guys had a great group of seniors, phenomenal, and you supplemented it with some really impressive young talent. Obviously, you know it's high school. There's going to be guys to replace every single year. There's probably no replacing of Brody Earlbeck, but at the same time, you have young guys that are coming up through that are well already on their way to becoming stars. Talk to us about some of the young talent in the program.
Hold on, before we do that, I'm coming to that because I want to talk about, because Staley, this was in this because again, you've taken over for Dave Wilson, and you go back through. Staley's been in Final Fours going back to 2013, and even before that, 2013, 2015, 2019, they were there. You guys have, and then of course here recently with the second place finish. So, I mean, program wise, you're stepping into some shoes that with a lot of history in that. How does that figure into your thought process about coaching? And we'll come back to that. Sorry, Kevin. I just want to do this real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, well, there's no substitute for talent, right? So, so walking in, Staley was one of the positions that I actually coveted because of that reason, the sustainability of what Coach Wilson established, the resources. So, I mean, that was the job that if I was going to take a high school job, honestly, is the one that I targeted and wanted. I think it's just coming in and trying to build off of what Coach Wilson did. They already had an established culture. They already had the resources in place. They already had those things. We got great facilities. So really just going in and trying to put your own little twist or stamp on it to get the buy-in and try to continue to take it to the next level. So for me, I would rather have it that way. Walking into talent and try to keep it than walking in a place where you don't have it, right? So it really wasn't that hard to walk in there, and Coach Wilson was a great support system to me, giving me all the resources and information and insight, and he did everything to help us continue the legacy that he built. Showed up at some games, and we talked regularly, and so for me it was a great transition.
Now, I don't know if you remember Kevin's question.
Oh, yeah, I was going to talk about him. Talk about some of the young talent that we had. Let's go back to last year's team just a little bit. We did have a ton of seniors, right? I think we had 17 seniors last year, but we had the opportunity to play at the end of the season. We started 2 freshmen and a sophomore and a junior, and of course all those kids are returning. But the thing that I talk about to people that they don't realize is that off of last year's team, we only had 4 full-time varsity starters returning. Of course, they were all our best pitchers, but the position player guys were all JV guys. You look at a guy like Evan Abbott that goes in and throws up astronomical numbers, and last year was his first and only year on varsity. So those are the messages that I continue to tell our kids now. Is those guys did it. Why can't you guys do it? So I think we're experience-wise, not on the pitching mound-wise, but position player-wise, I think we're in a pretty good group. You got Andrew Malsby, who will take over the reins this year as our primary catcher, who caught quite a bit for us and backed up Easton last year. I think he's going to take a huge jump. And then we've got Brady Nelson, who will be his backup catcher, who had a really good summer with the Royal Scout team. He'll be backup catcher, play some first base and DH. And then we've got Crew Patrick, who I think's one of the best players in this region, honestly, with the tools that he brings. And he's going to have an even bigger role on the pitching side of it than he did last year. I mean, we had a freshman out there. He was throwing 86, 88, and I think he only threw 9 innings because we didn't need him. Of course, we're going to need him. Yeah. It was nice. Of course, we're going to need him to be able to take a jump in that area and give us more innings. And then, like I said, we've got some younger talent. I tell people all the time, if you can make varsity as a sophomore at a school like ours, you're really doing something, right? And if you do it as a freshman, you're really, really doing something. That's a special type of talent to be able to do that. But we've got some guys that are juniors that I think are ready to take the next step. And really, it's about being more physical with those guys. They've had some talent, and we talked to them about their off-season conditioning and playing to be able to get better. So we won't be as dominant on the mound, but I think we're going to be able to hold our own.
Sure, you will.
Coach, when we talk about the gold division in KC Suburban, you've outlined some of the teams I know on that were the ones that are close to you, but what you're talking about Liberty North, talking about Blue Springs South, when you're going into a season, do you prepare for it? And this is a question I like to ask because, districts are set up, different schools in different places and whatnot. Do you put as much emphasis on winning a conference?
We do. I think if you can win our conference, you're in good shape to be able to win your districts and move on to state. So, yes, we do put emphasis on winning our conference. It's one of our goals. Primary goals is to win our conference, because if you win our conference, everybody has to take you seriously because you've got a chance to win districts and go to state. So I think some people don't value it, but I do value it. I think it sets a standard for our program, and that's something that we strive to do. Of course, we're going to make smart decisions about that, but winning a conference was our number one goal last year.
I love that. Because I do think, you set your season, and it's true of any place, when you go to the next level, you're playing college ball, your first goal is to win your conference. Because if you don't have a good enough record, some schools miss out on their conference tournament and don't get a chance to advance. So I think those are real things.
Yeah, of course. Districts is more important, but even our last year's team with Brody only threw 2 conference games last year, which most people don't know. And we won our conference. I think we went 12-2, and Brody only pitched 2 conference games until districts. So it just lined out that way when we set up the matchups and their pitching rotations. But it's something that we always are striving to try to do, is just to win that conference. Because there's no guarantee you're getting out of our district. So you better win something.
we talk about that all often, like right around the start of districts. I'm like, well, District 8 has 3 teams in the top 10, and only one, 2 of them are going home, and one of them probably is going to win state, and 2 won't even make it to the district finals.
Yeah, and you can not win our conference and still get out of districts. But, right. At least if you win the conference, we got something to be able to show, that we accomplished something that year.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
It's interesting you say it, Kevin, because you look at this, guys, and Liberty, I think, is in District 8, correct? Isn't Liberty District 8?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Liberty North is District 8. So since 2021, the Blue Jays won it in 21. Liberty North went back-to-back 22 and 23 with that heck of a baseball team. Blue Springs won it in 24, and Blue Springs South, that's District 5. So District 8, District 5, these two, and you got Rockbridge over in District 5, I believe it is, every year. I mean, my goodness, how do you when you come out of you win your conference, you set yourself. How do you prepare your kids mentally for that challenge, Coach?
I think they're prepared. The schedule that we play, there's no off games or off days, right? I personally think we played the hardest schedule in the state of Missouri last year. Our out-of-state schedule, we played Enid, Oklahoma, which was a state. They made it to state last year. We played Valley View out of Arkansas. I believe they won this 5A state last year. And then we played Bryan, who's traditionally another, and then we played at St. Thomas Aquinas, who won state back-to-back over in Kansas, right? And then, of course, within our conference, in the non-conference, we played Platte County and Smithville. And so I think our kids are more than prepared by the time we get done with our season. And I believe, like I told you before at the state tournament, there wasn't a situation that we hadn't been in, right? So I felt like our kids were prepared for that. When you go through the grind of the schedule that we play, it's another game, right? And that's the mentality we want kids to be able to play. It's a big game, but it's just baseball, right? At the end of the day, and just go do what you've done all year long, and everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah, love the approach, and I definitely agree with you. When it's tournaments like the Columbia tournament and your guys' out-of-state experience. I was actually at one of your games when you guys took one on the chin, and I was like, this is still a great team over back in Columbia, over at Hickman.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's like, hey, we're not worried about being undefeated. We're worried about building this thing. Not that I'm sure you would want to go undefeated, but playing good people, that it's iron sharpens iron. And what do you have set up for next season? Do you have another out-of-state run that put together, or what?
Yeah, we're going back. We're going back to Little Rock over right before spring break, the weekend of spring break. I'm not sure who will play down there, but it's always pretty good competition. And then we're playing Aquinas again, and we've got Platte County, and we've got Smithville. We're going back to Columbia 2 times for that tournament. Then we're going back and we play Kickapoo and Rockbridge. So it's not any gaps in there. I was just teasing my AD yesterday. I'm like, man, I need to find a game here where I can just kick back and relax. And then while I'm sitting in his office, he gets a call from Parkway South trying to come up to play us on a Saturday. And I'm like, they're in Final Four. Like, but you know what? If we can make it work, we're going to do it. If we can make it work, we're going to do it. Yeah.
I love that, man. I mean, Parkway South, Matt Brown trying to challenge his kids too. I see, that's the thing about it. When you start hearing that coaches like that, they're seeing what has been a recipe, I think, for success. And coaches getting out and playing those top teams, you got to put your kids in that position, just as you said. Because otherwise, are you prepared mentally for the challenge when you get to that big moment? If you haven't been there, sometimes it just can be overwhelming.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'd always Dayton Moore, who's a mentor of mine, his son Robert and my son are the same age and played together on the scout team. So always says, and I keep this in the back of my mind, you only advance at the level of your competition, right? And so if you want to get better, you got to play better people. You're not going to get better by going out there and continually beating people 15-2. You have to be able to challenge yourself. And so I keep that in the back of the mind when it comes to scheduling.
Absolutely. When we look at this scenario, Coach, we're looking at the overall scope of baseball in the state of Missouri. You've been doing this a long time. Kevin brings we've been watching, the growth of and watching kids start now getting drafted and this. Where do you see the talent level, and how does this keep growing as baseball continues in the state of Missouri?
You can go ahead, Kevin.
Well, I think we kind of touched on it earlier in the conversation with the facilities improving, not only, the private ones like Home Field and Creekside and Urban Youth, but, you look at like we've had these conversations. Staley has a first-class facility now. And once one does it, then the other, the neighboring districts feel like they need to do that. And we've seen that happen all across the state. I still think Springfield does it the best out of anyone. But just in terms of overall facilities and game day atmospheres, and it reminds me more of some of how the southern states approach high school baseball. But things like the best of 3 series to advance to the championship, I think you can tell that they're putting more of an emphasis on it. I think our travel teams do a phenomenal job of developing, and you see that every single year when you go out to these games, and it's it's almost common to see 90-mile-per-hour arms now. And if you look at Coach Josenberger's pitching staff last year, just the amount of talent they had, and it's not just them. It's I think it's a combination of that all boxed into one, Brian.
Yeah, for us, like right now, we're looking at how can we upgrade our technology at the field. So we're looking into some different technology systems that we can have access to for our players at practice and games. So that's the next step for us, to try to get these guys with their metrics and numbers to be able to make adjustments, to be able to, the recruiting process right now is just stupid when it comes to high school kids, right? I actually love the process where it is now without the transfer portal piece. Parents complain about kids committing in 8th grade. Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore. And now they're panicking because their kid's not committed as a senior. I'm like, listen, we can't have it both ways, right? I think the way that it's going now is the way that it's designed to be sustainable, right? So you don't have people flip-flopping all over the place and changing, but the only problem that I have is schools committing the kids and then dropping them in the last 6 weeks before the summer part. But I understand why they do it. I mean, they have to try to win and do those things and compete. It's $1 million business, and you're hired to be fired a lot nowadays in college baseball because it's so much more prevalent. I understand it, but it just puts our high school kids in such a difficult position that it's just uncomfortable. But like I said, I like it this way. I mean, I've got some kids that are seniors that are on the bump, and they're late developers, so they're still going to have an opportunity. So we've got to just do everything that we can at the high school level as far as the technology and the development to continue to put our kids in a good position to be able to get to the next level.
I like that. And I think it's because, college baseball, especially at the Power 4 level, I don't think it's amateur baseball anymore in that respect. It's semi-pro. It's semi-pro baseball, and that's okay. I don't care one way or the other personally in that respect. I don't have a problem with it. It's been that way for quite some time in a lot of ways. It's just now everything's more out in the open and I guess, for a lack of a better way to put it, legal. Right? So it's okay. And I think, Kevin, you've talked about this on numerous occasions. It's just going to take a few years for us to really settle into what that looks like as we move forward, right?
Yeah, we've touched on this before. I think Major League Baseball has gotten pretty smart, and by them cutting out the part of the minor league levels, they've honestly put the onus on the colleges and how good they are at developing and how well those systems are now run. So they're protecting their investments. They've figured out that, hey, if we send these kids to go play in the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, the Big 10, we're going to know so much more about them. And then, we'll go pluck the ones that, Carter Jensen's a local kid over in Kansas City that there's a story that I believe he was a second rounder and just got called up by the Royals. So, there's still going to be exceptions to the rules. But I think that they've figured out that, hey, if we can start taking these kids when they're 21, as opposed to 18, we know so much more about them. And these coaches, like the Coach Josenberger and just even the college coaches and at the high school level, he's talking about getting technology at the system, at his facility. That was stuff that did not happen 10 years ago or even exist 10 years ago. So there's a lot of reasons for these the developments, and it's I think all very positive. And yeah, also my favorite rule now is these young guys are not committing, can't even start the recruiting process till their junior year. That makes all the coaches' jobs easier. You're a freshman and sophomore, worry about getting good grades, developing as a baseball player, get in the weight room. You don't have to worry about college visits and who's committing, who's not committing. Just get better and take care of business. And then you get to be a junior or senior. That's when we start to worry about it, which 100% agree with.
Absolutely. Coach, that when you said the technology, moving that into what you're doing practice, that to me, that's wild. That's huge. The factors that go into that with a pitcher and what you're seeing, because I always look at this and I think this is the data that needs to be looked at more than anything, and especially if you have that technology in game at your facility and you can use certain things that way, because we're so used to seeing, the big pops on the social media and this and that, but in the reality, and we go to the games and we'll see a gun on a kid that we've seen. He's shown on social media, I hit 95, but in the game, he's pitching 87 to 90 and whatnot and going through the process. That's okay too. And, these are the things that I think are the differentiators and the understanding of what's real and what's not real, correct?
Yeah, I think as much information and data that we can collect to share with college coaches during the recruiting process, it gives us credibility. And that's what I tell my players. I'm not going to lie to coaches for you, right? And I'm not going to oversell you, right? If you deserve it, I'm going to push everything I can for you. But the more numbers and stuff that we have over time, it helps to give that information to the college coaches when they're making decisions about it. This guy popped 94, but, the last 5 starts, he's been able to sit 90 to 92. As before, early in the season, he was 88 to 90. Right, so that information that we can gather for our players and it may emphasize the way that they train also, right? And are they peaking too early because of their training early? So the information that we can share with them, with their instructors, and the colleges, coaches, I think just helps streamline the process.
I love that.
What one final, because you've been on all sides of the coin, Coach, which is good. How important is it to have communication with the players' travel ball organizations and the high school coach, the connection or the bridge there between, hey, this is where I need my pitchers to be come tryouts or built up to here, et cetera, if you get what I'm.
Yeah, I'm open to talking to a lot of the club coaches, but I don't necessarily seek that relationship. I think that's part of what we try to do at Staley is develop our guys to be men and communicate for themselves. So I think it comes back to them learn how to communicate with both of us, and communicating what they're planning and what their process is, and where they are in their training, where they're throwing, and I think that's where I try to leave it. Like I'm open to make sure I'm talking to club coaches, but I don't really. When they go to club ball, I spent my this summer going just watching our guys play, and that was enjoyable for me. Like that's it. I didn't want to do anything else. I just sat back and watched. But I'm open to it. I know there's some coaches that may not be as open to it. And then don't forget to throw in the dynamic of the advisor. Right?
Well, you were fortunate enough to work with some of those kids over at Staley, so that is nice. Yeah. But I like that approach. You're using it as almost an educational piece there. Hey, player X, this is what I need from you come first day. Make sure you're there, ready to go at that time. Is that kind of? Yeah.
I think that's. Yeah, I mean, these guys have to start being accountable for themselves, and they're young men. So their careers and that, and I think it comes back to communication. And I think we did a really good job of that last year with our pitchers, and and their and advisors and instructors that they work with. But it's important, especially when it comes to the pitching side of it, right? It's not so much as prevalent on the position player side, but when it comes to the arm side of it, that's where you really need to have open lines of communication.
I think that's a interesting conversation in and of itself to when you're looking at, because you see it sometimes. That kid goes home and he's working with dad because dad knows his swing better, and you hear these conversations, goes back to the club, and there's a hitting coach with a philosophy and the things like that, how all those dynamics work. And you're talking about that here just even at the high school level with a pitching instructor and how that works together in the communication level that is necessary to be effective as a pitcher.
Yeah, most of my communication with club coaches is on the pitching side of it, not so much on the offensive side of it. It's important, but I think the players has a large responsibility in that and being able to communicate and advocate for themselves.
Do we, I think it's interesting because that is the emphasis on that is on the pitching side, but is there, as far as for a fielder physically hitting and whatnot, is there those same dynamics in that respect, or is it not as prevalent?
I really just push our guys working out, getting in the weight room and building their bodies, right? I don't care where they go, who they see. I just want to see some kind of improvement. You run into it a little bit sometimes with the training part, but not nearly as much as the training when it comes to position players and fielding and hitting. Because usually those adjustments aren't something that could cause you harm, right, or put you in a bad position physically. So there's not as much of emphasis on it. But when it comes to the throwing part of it, that's something that could be damaging when it comes to the overtraining or not training properly. So we just really push our guys getting bigger, faster, and stronger.
Bigger, faster, stronger. Do we have the $6 million man?
I wish.
There's an old reference, right? Oh man, I couldn't. That popped in my head. I couldn't help it. I'm an old guy.
Yeah, I remember that show.
Remember that show? Yeah, Kevin.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever watch $6 Million Man?
I never watched it.
But you knew about it, right?
Yes, I knew about it. Yeah,
absolutely. There you go, guys. This was a fantastic conversation, Coach Josenberger. Appreciate you taking the time. Good to talk with you a little bit more, and look forward to having you on the show in the future, bud.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thanks for the conversation. I'll see you guys soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Coach. Look forward to seeing you guys this spring.
Yes, sir. You too, Kevin.
We're going to get out to the KC Suburban folks. We're going to do a little bit more. We're working with coaches over there to create some more opportunities to get some live streams. As of right now, folks, I'm going to say this. We're going to look at all these different conferences as we're going through this, but KC Suburban, I think it might be the toughest conference in the state right now. I'm going to leave you with that. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Remember, subscribe, hit that like button, share it out with your friends. We appreciate that. Everybody, have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, Kevin, you know the drill.
Coach Josenberger likes it when you throw strikes.
100%.
Absolutely. And all you hitters, hit them where they ain't. It's easy. We'll see y'all next time.